Bring it on. That's the focus of tonight's angle.
But importantly, she says, there is no scientific debate when it comes to the big picture.
There is no argument about the value and the importance of gender-affirming care. There is no argument.
Now, forget her being a political liability to the Democrats. You know, Rachel Levine is first and foremost a liar. There's no argument among medical professionals about subjecting minors to this complete barbarity. Well, that's false.
Transition-affirming therapies are virtually untested and inflict lasting harms. And instead of providing parents with medical information and evidence-based studies, parents are frequently pressured into accepting these risky treatments on behalf of their children.
It hasn't been tested from childhood forward. Medications are being used off-label without proper FDA risk assessment profile. This whole thing is an experiment on children.
And let's drop the misleading euphemisms. Gender-affirming care goes beyond boys wearing dresses and girls changing their names. It can include barbaric surgery to remove reproductive organs and hormones to block puberty. Now, according to Biden's HHS, gender-affirming care includes social affirmation at any age, puberty blockers during puberty, and hormone therapy starting during early adolescence. Irreversible surgery is, quote, typically used in adulthood or case-by-case, in a case-by-case basis in adolescence. Okay, this is according to HHS. You know what I say? What is a case-by-case basis? On what basis are these exceptions made for the adolescents to get this surgery? And I'm going to guess. It's a totality of circumstances test, meaning the language is vague enough to allow for gender reassignment surgery on demand, regardless of the age. Now, parents across America are shocked at the breakneck speed that basic truths, institutions are coming under assault in the United States. We're talking about what's happening at the court tonight. When they see a biological boy playing women or girls in a sport, most parents are horrified. They're outraged. The same way that they feel when they see schools pushing sex and gender identity discussions on little kids.
You took away my ability to parent my child, even before I had any knowledge. I didn't even get to show support. You asked for support, I didn't get a chance. Your job was to educate my child in math, science, English, etc. Do your job and let me do mine.
It's a novel concept, doing your job. Yet the Democrats, seeing Biden's numbers cratering among almost every demographic group, they're determined to fight back. Saw a little bit of that tonight at the court, don't you think? They've convinced themselves that forcing their fringe ideas on the nation, no matter what they have to do that, will ultimately pay off. And in the meantime, they tar everybody else as outliers, holding back what is the proper progress. And again, as I mentioned tonight, we learned in this Politico piece that the court has voted, apparently, to strike down Roe versus Wade, coming from this leaked draft of an opinion from the court, which, again, is a breach that has never occurred in the history of the Supreme Court. And by the way, the ruling is just merely going to send the abortion issue back to the states. The idea that the U.S. Constitution ever prohibited states from regulating or even outlawing, if they deemed appropriate, the procedure was total legal fantasy from day one. It was totally made up. The left is going into the stratosphere tonight. They're going nuts. They know their entire facade, everything they fought for. This is the hill that they'll die on. They're worried that it's all going to come crumbling down. And they think that somehow this leak is going to be a gift that could rescue them for the midterms. Well, the thinking is misguided. Think about what the American people are saying about some of the other hot topics out there that some of them we're discussing. The gender identity push in education, of course, the so-called anti-racism ideology and CRT influence in schools. How about the diversity, equity, inclusion? That's my favorite acronym. The orthodoxy in college admissions in corporate America, the attacks on law enforcement, the abortion industrial complex that's screaming out tonight. Trans athletes in women's sports.
My 5-year-old is being peddled transgender books in her library. Teenagers are being served pornography under the guise of young adult literature. Do something. Be a leader. Because if you know what, the citizens of this county deserve better.
And as we saw at Thursday's town hall in Orlando, Republican governors like Ron DeSantis are fighting back with success, even against some big corporations.
So I want everyone to do well, but I am not comfortable having one company with their own government and special privileges when that company has pledged itself to attacking the parents in my state. When that company has very high up people talking about injecting pansexualism into programming for young kids. It's wrong. Walt Disney would not want that. And so get back to the mission. Do what you did great. That's why people love the company, and you've lost your way. Maybe this will be the wake-up call that they need to get back on track.
I never got a chance to see that recorded. That was pretty wild. But the White House, think about that, they're fresh out of ideas. So what they've decided to do is to wind up old Biden and send him out to snap back aggressively.
Today, there are too many politicians trying to score political points, trying to ban books, even math books. I mean, did you ever think, even your younger teachers, did you ever think when you'd be teaching, you'd be worrying about book burnings and banning books? All because it doesn't fit somebody's political agenda. We got to stop making the target of the culture wars.
Maybe Joe was sleeping over the past, 40 years. But his loyalists succeeded in removing some of America's classic literary works over that time. Books like Huck Finn, Of Mice and Men, To Kill a Mockingbird. Those are being taken out of schools' core curricula across the United States. So you got the teachers' unions, right? They're fighting not for great literature, but against any memory of American traditionalism or excellence, even patriotism. And remember, the American Federation of Teachers, it's Biden's go-to cash cow. The unions, by the way, remember, they did more damage to children by supporting the COVID lockdowns than we're ever going to know. If they could have remained virtual forever, I think they would have.
If there are problems and shortages, then either some schools are closing in those districts or those districts are taking a pause.
It's not a matter of we don't want to be there. It's that we can't stay there. Testing, masks, vaccinations, proper ventilation. Our schools, most of them don't have those basic things.
Still waiting for that ventilation for them to go back to work. Over the weekend, we were in Florida and then other parts, which we'll talk about later, but mothers, fathers, they were coming up to us saying, never stop fighting for us, please. It's always gratifying to hear from you. I had no idea, frankly, how bad things had gotten with the schools until COVID. Yet the Biden administration is just doubling down on their failure and radicalism on all these cultural issues. And this means Democrats are standing against more traditional parents, and just common sense parents, I think, at this point, who just want politics out of the classroom. But Democrats, they're finding some new stars out there.
So who am I? I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom who knows that the very notion that learning about slavery or redlining or systemic racism somehow means that children are being taught to feel bad or hate themselves because they are white is absolute nonsense. I want every child in this state to feel seen, heard, and supported, not marginalized and targeted because they are not straight, white, and Christian.
The New Yorker is calling her a role model for the midterms. I kid you not. Move over, AOC, because a liberal Karen with a headband is coming for the spotlight. She's part Joy Reid, part Jen Psaki, telling David Remnick, if Democrats don't stand up and fight back, the Republicans are going to put forward people who may not support our having free and fair elections ever again. She hadn't heard about what happened to the court yet. Now, don't you love it, though, when liberals spout these spurious concerns about democracy one minute, then they support limiting free speech the next and leaking stuff from the court? These people are the anti-Democrats, and their thinking is as flat as their singing. Misinformation herself, Nina Jankowicz, she's a rank partisan, yet somehow she's put in charge of the DHS Disinformation Office. Now, guess what misinformation called purveyors of disinformation at the start of the pandemic? Okay. Those who question the CCP's handling of COVID were the ones pushing out the disinformation, according to her. The whole wet market origins theory that was ridiculous from the beginning. Well, it turns out her commentary on COVID's origins tracked China's remarkably well. Again, the lab leak theory is still the most plausible explanation of COVID's origins, always has been. But TikTok princess, she doesn't care. Don't hold your breath for fact checks on China. The Democrats' new millennial culture warrior will spend her time scolding conservative media with a karaoke accompaniment. So will any of this work? This in-your-face defense of the stuff that they've been trying to hide from parents and taxpayers for all these years? These attacks on the First Amendment, even now the Supreme Court's legitimacy? All I'll say is Republican campaign managers and their candidates across America tonight are thrilled about the Democrats' new strategy. So bring it on. For too long, the GOP establishment has run like scared little sisters from the cultural issues, those critical issues of the day. They prefer to focus on the safe issues like economic and tax policy. That's not enough. Not without the issues that touch the formation of our children, our own hearts, the sanctity of their bodies, the safety of our streets. The Democrats have reminded us just how critical these issues are. So let's hope the GOP doesn't forget those lessons. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.